In addition to the quick denoise functionality, the denoise AI accelerated denoiser also holds some more advanced denoising settings. These settings can be accessed by coming to the Render Layers tab of our Properties panel and dropping down the Denoise AI Denoiser section. Each of these checkboxes will slightly change the functionality of the AI denoiser, so our resultant image will be slightly different depending on what settings we have enabled. But for now, let's just check this box next to the Denoise AI denoiser. Basically what this box does is it automatically runs the denoiser after our render is complete. So it will render, it will apply compositing, and then it will automatically quick denoise basically. Of course, it is just a quick denoise because we don't have any of these advanced settings, so it's basically just an automatic quick denoise button. Let's try it out. If we come to our render tab here and click render, our image will begin to render, and we'll see the denoising applied in real time. As you can see, the rendered image is complete, it's completed compositing, and then our denoised image is pushed out. And just like we had with the quick denoise functionality, all we have to do is click the little eyeball to alternate between the render result and the denoised image. So this is really nice because it actually hangs on to the original render, unlike the Cycles denoiser. Of course, like I said before, this is basically just running the quick denoise. So let's look at some of these more advanced settings. The first setting we have is using HDR training. Using HDR training will enable the HDR training model present in the underlying AI denoiser. This will help the AI denoiser more accurately portray the very dark and very bright parts of your image. Without HDR training, sometimes these parts become excessively bright or a little bit darker than they should be, so using HDR training can help preserve their original values. As you can see, we got a slightly different result out of the denoiser this time, but it's actually a lot closer to the ground truth render. Now let's take a look at our last setting down here. Use extra passes. If I zoom in on this render, you'll notice that a lot of these rocks have very little to no detail, and they look kind of like somebody painted them on as opposed to actually, CG rendered them. Use extra passes will help eliminate this, because in reality, there are actually quite a few textures on this rock here that completely got wiped out by the denoiser. So, using extra passes will enable a albedo and normal AOV to be passed to the underlying AI denoiser, that way it retains these details. So once again, let's render and see how this result comes out. And as you can see, we have so much more detail that was completely wiped out by the denoiser before that we now have thanks to the use extra passes option. If you're doing a render with a lot of precise textures, using extra passes is a must because it will help keep all of these specific details that otherwise might be lost. Now another thing to note is that this render was completed at only 10 samples, which is something that's crazy low compared to what it would otherwise take to get a noiseless image. Previously, I had to render this at 1500 samples and there was still a lot of noise left in the shadows because it's interior render. But with the denoise AI denoiser and extra passes, we can get something that's remarkably close to the ground truth result with only 10 samples. Now that's some real denoising.